Hi, this is Andrew from Nature's Image Photography, and welcome to the very first in my photography school series of tutorials on shooting in manual mode. For the first few videos in the series, I'm going to start at the absolute ABCs of photography. That's right, I'm going to assume you know nothing. Then, step by step, one video at a time, we're going to work our way up to the type of serious camera techniques I've used to take photos like these. So, if you are a true beginner, this is absolutely the best place to start, but if you're already a bit advanced, you might like to skip ahead a bit. Throughout the course of these videos, you're going to see some of my best and maybe some of my worst pictures along the way, but you won't be seeing too much of me in front of the camera, which I think we can all agree is for the best. You can thank me in the comments below. Now, before we begin, don't forget to click the subscribe button below so that you can see each new tutorial as soon as they come online. Now, right at the beginning, I want to explain what we mean by shooting in manual. We're talking about manual exposure. That's where you choose the shutter speed, the aperture and the ISO to control the exposure of your photograph. Switching your camera to manual is easy. On almost every DSLR or mirrorless camera, there's a dial on top with a bunch of letters. You might have P for program or A for auto. Shutter priority is S or TV. Aperture priority is A or AV. Then you have an M for manual. Simply turn the dial to M and you're ready to shoot in manual mode. Before we go any further, I just want to quickly clear up a common bit of confusion. Manual exposure and manual focus are two completely separate things. You have the option, usually on the lens or on the front of the camera, to switch between shooting in auto focus and manual focus, but that's not what we're talking about here. It's okay to continue using autofocus even when you're shooting in fully manual mode. They are completely different functions. So, if you're happy shooting with autofocus, I say keep on doing it. All I'm asking you to do for now is turn that dial on top of your camera to M and we're ready to roll. Shooting in manual means that you manage all the settings that affect the exposure. Those settings are the aperture, the shutter speed and the ISO, and we're going to be talking a lot about those in the coming videos. But in this video I want to address the big question, why bother? You've spent several hundred, maybe even a few $1,000s on a high-tech computerized camera that can do all the work for you. So what is the point of shooting in manual? Well, the first and obvious answer, of course, is that you can take better photos. If you control the exposure, then you, not the camera, get to decide how your photos are going to come out. And believe me, that extra control makes a big difference in your photography. You see, cameras are smart, but they're not as smart as the human brain. And the sensor inside the camera is incredibly sensitive, but not as sensitive as the human eye. Take a look at this pelican photo. First, let's look at it the way the human sees it. We have a white pelican in bright sunlight with darker water in the background. When we look at a scene like this, we can see all the detail in the highlights and all the detail in the darker areas at the same time. Now, let's look at how the camera does things. And let's put the pelican aside for a moment and just break it down to a question of light and shade. This chart represents the brightest light and the darkest shadow and every level in between. Now, when we look at the world, we can see a vast range of light and shadow all at the same time. But the camera's different. The camera can expose for something very bright, or it can expose for something very dark, but it can't expose for both at the same time. It's all about a term we call dynamic range, which I won't go into here, but you can look it up if you want to. So, to take a photo of something bright, the camera has to cut down the amount of light to prevent overexposing it. But that means anything dark in the photograph is going to come out much darker, or underexposed. If we try and take the photograph of something dark, we need to let in more light, but that means anything bright in the photograph will come out too bright or overexposed. So, back to our pelican. Remember, the camera is not the same as a human brain. It doesn't even know this is a pelican. It doesn't even know this is the main subject of the photo. When working out the exposure, all the camera does is look at all the light and all the shade in the photograph and try to make its best guess. Imagine for a moment that your camera can talk to itself. What would it be saying? Okay, well, there's a bit of something bright here, but 3/4 of the scene is pretty dark. If we don't let in some extra light, we're going to underexpose most of the photo. So because of all the dark area in this picture, the camera wants to increase the exposure. But as it brightens up the background, it also brightens up the pelican, and this is the result. Remember, this is what the camera thinks is the correct result. So if you were shooting in auto, this is what you'd get. But if the camera's best guess is wrong, you have two choices. You can settle for a badly exposed photo, or you can take control of the exposure yourself and get it right. In the coming videos, I'm going to start explaining the settings we use to take control of the exposure. It's a fascinating area and I really hope you enjoy it. But for now, I want you to take a moment and think about all the times in your photography where you might encounter a situation where there's a big difference in brightness between the subject and the background. You'll pretty soon realise just how important it is to take control of your exposures. Thanks for watching this first video in the series. I'm Andrew Goodall and I look forward to sharing my knowledge with you. Cheers for now.